Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Now we are going to talk about environmental engineering. In environmental engineering principle, the environmental impact assessment, which is unit number 10, the last unit of your syllabus. So in this unit, we are going to talk about the environmental impact assessment, which is also called as the EIA of any project. The EIA, by definition, is a process of estimating and evaluating the significant short-term and the long-term effect of a program or project on the quality of its locations environment. What is the meaning of this? Actually, environmental impact assessment is a study. For example, you want to construct a project. Before going for the construction of the project, you have to do the study that maybe after construction of this project, there will be some negative impact on the environment, there will be some harmful effect on the environment. So what you have to do to protect, so this study is showing that what will be the effect, the short term effect, yani during the construction, for example, of the project. Long term effect, for example, once the project will be constructed, then during the operation of the project, for example, you constructed a chemical industry, so during the production of the chemicals, this is the long term effect. So what are the effect on the environment at that location where you are constructing this project, right? So this environmental impact assessment is very helpful for deciding to approve the project for construction or decline and not approve the project. So it is also includes identifying the ways to minimize, mitigate, or eliminate these effects and or compensate for their impact. For example, once you know that this project having some effect, so how you can minimize that effect, you have to suggest how you can mitigate, you can reduce the effects or you can remove the effects, eliminate the effects, right? So the method, for example, you are generating the gases during the operation of your project, so what are the possibility to reduce that impact? You can put the scrubber in the stack, you can put the some type of the equipment which can reduce the environmental pollution. So these are the mitigation or elimination suggestions you can give in the EIA. And or if you can compensate, for example, you are cutting some trees during the construction of the highway, so how you can compensate that? Maybe you can put 10 times more plants in the area. So to, for example, you cut 10 trees, so you can put maybe 50 or 100 plants in that area, so it will control the negative impact. So this is the basically the environmental impact assessment. The EIA, environmental impact assessment, is actually give the answer of the 5 question, and these questions are in a systematic way, and those answer, once you will do the study, you will get the answer for that those question, right? For example, these informations are related to the socio-economic activity and the social uh, effects, the economic effects, and the environmental effect. All these effects are actually studied in that. So EIA actually asks what is happening to the environment and why we have to say the yani, statement that when you are going to construct a project, what will happen to the environment? For example, you are constructing a chemical industry, petrochemical industry, so what will happen to the environment once the construction of the industry will be done? So this is one of the question. Then what is the consequences of the environmental and humanity? Yani, for example, once the industry is in the operation, it will discharge the wastewater, it will discharge the gases effluent. So what will be the effect of these waste on the environment and the people? So you have to answer this also. And what is being done about it and how effective it is? Yani, for example, you want to construct this industry, you know these are the effects, but what are the mitigation effects, yani, procedures you are adopting, you are suggesting? So that is the answer you will get and this in this stage. And also, what could be the alternative future of the environmentally sustainable or unsustainable development of this project? For example, you want to produce a product. Is there any other way to produce the same product? You can. or you can improve the quality of the effluent when you are doing this construction, or you are operating this project. So these are the things you can get from here. And what alternative action could be taken? Yani for example, if you are uh, producing the some wastewater, what you can do, you can discharge this wastewater to some nearby wastewater treatment plant, or you can treat this wastewater inside the industry. You can put a small treatment unit. So what are the different alternatives? So you can suggest that. So the EIA actually answered these five questions, and based on that your project can be approved or disapproved. What are the main aims and objective of the IA? Basic aim and objective is to modify and improve the design. For example, if you are having um, a project, and the project is having some negative impact, so can you modify the design? Can you improve the design? For example, you are uh, construction of a building which is using a lot of electricity. So whether you can use the solar energy to improve the design by modifying the design. So these are the aim of any project. And ensure the efficient resource use. For example, you have the material, you have the labor, you have the finance. So how efficiently you will use the resources? So the more efficiently you will use the resources, you will save the resources, so it will be beneficial for the environment. Enhance the social aspects. When you are doing this project, whether it will impact the people, so they will not like it. So you should have a project in which your social relationship should improve. Identify the key impacts and measures for mitigation of them. So you should mention in the EIA, environmental impact assessment report, to in environmental impact assessment, that what are the negative impact and what are the mitigation uh, factors you are mentioning in the report. Also, you have to inform the decision makers that what are the uh, safety measure, what are the mitigation impact, and what are the condition you are suggesting to make this project sustainable and safe for the environment. Avoid the serious and irreversible damage to the environment. So you have to prove in your environmental impact assessment report that whatever the negative impacts are there, these effects are not irreversible. This is, for example, if there is some damage, it will not the permanent damage to the environment. It can be controlled. It can be non-serious. So if these are serious if, impact, the project will not be approved. And the most important thing, protect the human health and safety. You have to prove that even you are doing this project, it will not be harmful for the public health and the safety of the human being in that area. So these are the things which we target in our EIA to prepare the report. So if I want to do this project, who will do the EIA? I am not expert for that, maybe. So there are several government and private organizations who can do this EIA or EIS, environmental impact assessment or environmental impact study. So these are the things which can be done by several organization, like the companies like this. MBNG is one of the company which is providing the environmental services. They can do the environmental impact assessment for any project, and you have to pay them, and they will prepare the report, and they will defend your project in the for the hearing in the environmental impact assessment. The environmental impact assessment process is having 6 steps. And these major steps starts with the screening, then initial environmental examination, scoping, full scale assessment, EIA review, decision making, monitoring, and follow up. So what, let us see one by one. Screening. Maybe your project is very simple project. It is not having some hazardous problem. It will not create environmental problems. So maybe you don't need the EIA. So this in the screening actually you will decide that whether it is required EIA or not. So not all development projects requires an EIA, as some projects may not pose an environmental threat, environmental damage. It will not have any dangerous effect on the environment. So screening is the process which used to determine whether a proposed project or activity requires an EIA. As I told you, you have to decide whether it need EIA or not. If it doesn't need EIA, just prove that, then your project will be approved. If it needs EIA, you have to do the study and then get the approval. So if so, what level of environmental review is necessary? So categorize the project as one where full scale EIA required. For example, when you did the study, initial study screening, and you will find out the full scale EIA required because there is big problem in the project. Some further environmental analysis required if there is not much problem, it is yani little effect of the environment is there, then just maybe you have to do small study to prove that your project is safe. And if there is no impact on the environment, then no further environmental risk is required. So these thing you have to decide by screening. The screening is actually a test in which if you prove that your project have no impact on the environment, then you don't need to do the EIA. What is the criteria? How you decide that? Screening criteria typically consider few things like the project type, location, size of the project. For example, if it's a big project, maybe even it is having that little effect on the environment, but because of the huge project, it needs some study. Project is a simple type of the project like a house, construction of a house, maybe it doesn't need. Maybe the location, you are not doing a construction of for example a airport near the city, it is maybe 20-30 kilometer away, so then it has not much impact. So these are the things you from which you can decide. Receiving environment characteristic, for example, when you are having a environmental study on a project and you find that the wastewater what will be generated, it will be treated inside the plant, and when it is discharged to the sea, it will not have having the effect on the sea. So the receiving environment, yani sea, will not be damaged. So then no need for this further study. Strength of the public and the community opinion, this is also very important. For example, the public need this project badly, they need electricity, so you have to build the power plant, right? So if there is a strength of the public, even it has impact on the environment, then you have to do that, it can be approved. Confidence in prediction of the impact, if you are expert and you are confident that there is no impact on the environment, then based on that you can prove and you can get the clearance from the authority. Second step is the initial environmental examination. For example, you find that there are some environmental effects, so you have to go in deep, see what will happen. So first you have to define the impact, and what will happen when you are, for example, putting a pipeline, and because of this pipeline, what will be happening around that one. For example, you are constructing a highway, so during construction of the highway, what will happen to the area around the highway. Then you have to characterize the baseline situation. Baseline situation before construction of your project, what is the environment, what are the type of the houses are there, what are the type of the people living there, what are the animals and flora fauna is there, any trees, plants, animal, everything you have to consider. And then you have to define the activity, and after that, when you will do the construction, what will happen to the environment, you have to compare with the baseline situation. And before that, for example, you have uh, several tree, and once you will do the construction of this road, then tree will be cut down. So what will happen by your activity, this is the initial environmental examination. And once you see that there is a significant environment, you are cutting a lot of trees, and the many birds and the animals will migrate from here, so this is a significant impact. So what is impact? The impact of an activity is a deviation, any change from a baseline situation. Yani before the construction of the project, there was an environment, and after construction there will be change in the environment. Maybe the birds and animal will move from that area, right? So this is the impact which will happen. So this impact, study of this impact is very important. So to measure an impact, you must know what the baseline situation is. So baseline study is very important to before construction of a project. Then comes the third step, scoping. The scoping process invites the public to tell a lead agency what the public thinks should be addressed in EIA. Actually, in this stage, once you have a initial study, you will invite the public who are the beneficiary of that project, or who are living in that area where doing the construction, and you invite the authorities also, like environmental control department and the public, and you will explain the public in front of them, and you will ask the public if they have any question, if there is public concern, if people uh, object that this should not be done, then you have to justify this one. If you cannot justify it to the public, then the project cannot be approved. The scoping is one of the important stage where you have to satisfy the public as well as the authorities. Once you feel that your project is a big project and it has a significant impact on the environment, then you have to go for the full environmental assessment study if it is required. So here what you have to do, you have to study the high risk activity, all the action what you are doing during the construction or after the construction, what will happen. So it is very similar in outline as a preliminary assessment. The initial environmental impact study is similar to that, but it has important differences. It has more detail. So the report will contain a lot of analysis, calculation, lab studies and measurements. So this will be the full environmental assessment study. How to full environmental assessment is different from the initial environmental examination. As I told you, the initial examination, environmental examination is a small study as compared to the full scale environmental assessment. So a formal scoping process, the ID is issued to be addressed. In this one, you will give a specific ID number for every activity, for every steps. Analysis of the environmental impact is much more in detail, so it will be in more detail as compared to the initial study. Alternatives, you will provide the alternatives for your activity. For example, you are making a paper production factory, so you can give the alternative. What are the other ways to produce the same product? So you have to provide the alternative. Public consultation required in the full scale environmental study, while in the initial environmental examination you don't need the public involvement. A professional team is usually required for complete or full scale environmental assessment. It should be done by the expert people. The EIA report. EIA report is a report. It is a written document which actually address all the things. And in EIA report, basically having four sections, including the introduction, which is giving the statement of the purpose and the need, and why you want to do this project, why it is needed, okay, and what is the proposed action. Yani, for example, you need to produce some chemicals, so for that you have to put a chemical industry, right? So this is the need and the action. Then you have to provide the description of the affected environment, yani during the construction and after the construction, what will be the effect on the environment. So this part should be in the report. Then range of the alternative, yani if you are mm, going to produce the same product, what are the other method you can use to get the same product. So this is the different alternative, and it is the heart of the EIS. It is the basic component of the EIS. And in analysis of the environmental impact of each of the possible alternative, you should also provide. Yani you can do the some lab tests, you can get the sample from the environment, you can do the calculation, other analysis, then you can prove that in this report that your project is safe or not. So these are the four basic parts present in an EIA report. Uh, the EIA review and decision making is the most important and the concluding part of a report. And generally, a decision making process is the process by which an agency or a decision maker will take into consideration all of the factors, whether technical, economical, environmental, necessary to decide whether a proposed project should be proceed or not. So here the authorities at this stage will decide whether your project should be approved or not based on your environmental impact assessment report and the public hearing. Public hearing, that the like the environmental control department people will come in at a place and the public will be invited. Then you will defend your project. Once you will successfully defend the project, then it will be approved. If you cannot defend your project, you cannot explain properly the environmental impact mitigation processes, then maybe project will not be approved. So this is one of the important stage which will give the decision of approval. Once the project will be approved, you will do the construction, and during the construction you will take the safety measures and the environmental control method. And even after the construction, during the production phase or operation of that industry, you will monitor, and you will monitor that there may be some effect during the operation of the project. So continuous monitoring is always there. So you have to provide the monitoring plan, what you will do during the operation and how you will check, follow up for this one. So it defines the selected indicators for ensuring that mitigation measures are being implemented and are effective. For example, if there is a mitigation measure to control the noise, there is a noise problem during the construction. So you suggested something that I will use some sound protection equipment or some sound barrier. So to control the noise during construction, so the monitoring plan should include noise measurements during construction. So you have to measure the noise by some instrument and you have to provide the data to the authorities that look, there is not much sound produced during this construction, and also identifies the authorities responsible for the monitoring. Then you have actually this is decided by the environmental control department. Then who will monitor your project? For example, they will assign some inspectors to go regularly to your place for maybe every month or every 3 months to check whether your project is doing well or they are producing some environmental pollution. And if there is some money for this one, of course the people who will work, they need some money, so you have to pay for that also. So this should be included in the environmental monitoring plan. So this is all about the environmental impact assessment, EIA, and the procedure, and what are the basic components in that. So just go over that unit thoroughly. If you face any problem in understanding, kindly let me know and we can discuss it later on, right? So inshallah we'll see. Okay, take care. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullah.